I remember when I first appreciated classical music.
I vividly remember walking down the aisle of the auditorium with my parents.
I remember the first time I held a violin.
I remember seeing my son play with the Wichita Falls Symphony.
I remember sitting in rehearsal.
I'll never forget the anticipation and the excitement of getting all dressed up to go to the symphony with my parents.
I remember on opening night dressing up in a tuxedo and coming to the symphony.
Music is truly God's gift to mankind.
The value of the Wichita Falls Symphony to this area, to Texhoma here, is priceless. There's no other entity that could fill this space if we did not have this wonderful orchestra.
The Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra had its earliest beginnings in 1915 when Vienna transplant Ernest Katz established a group of 30 musicians who performed at Everton Music Hall. It was not until 6 years later, in 1921, that Katz was able to organize the first fully fledged orchestra in Wichita Falls. It was comprised of 65 musicians, most of whom performed for a living at the local moving picture houses. During the next 20 years, the orchestra was disbanded, then revived multiple times during the tumultuous stretch of history we now know as the Great Depression and World War II. While hardships were felt around the world, the light and passion for music never fully died in Wichita Falls.
We came to Wichita Falls right after the war, and we came the Christmas of '45. So I started with the symphony because it was just being formed and taking off, in other words.
The orchestra was revived after the Second World War in 1948 under the direction of Frédéric Balage. Under Balage, the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra became the 10th orchestra officially established in Texas.
People were anxious to help with this. So the whole thing just sort of worked out well.
The orchestra was comprised of 83 musicians from Wichita Falls, Dallas, and Fort Worth. Under Balage, the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra performed 4 regular subscription concerts every year.
We just had good people, we had good musicians, and much of it comes through having the Symphony League, Women's League.
The Wichita Falls Symphony Women's League was formed in 1952. Along with helping sell annual subscription tickets and program advertising, the league also hosted a glamorous annual ball at the Wichita Falls Country Club to help raise awareness and funds for the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra. This volunteer group continues to support the orchestra to this day through fundraising, offering scholarships to young area musicians, and acting as the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra's official historian.
The black tie and the symphony ball, it was the highlight. It was so wonderful to the opening symphony in October, and then you had the ball in December. It was just marvelous. Great memories.
Also in 1952, the Hungarian Dr. Erno Daniel took the reins as the orchestra's next musical director and conductor. Under his 8-year tenure, the orchestra saw great progress, including 3 world premieres and a European broadcast in Stockholm, Sweden, that aired sections of the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra's concert on Swedish national radio. Dr. Walter Charles took the helm of the orchestra following Dr. Daniel's departure in 1960. Before ending his brief tenure in 1964, Dr. Charles led performances with Benny Goodman and operatic sopranos Nadine Connor and Eleanor Stieber. 1964 began what would become a 20-year tenure by the orchestra's 5th musical director-conductor, William Hurst Boyer. Under Boyer's leadership, Tex Omens were treated to a host of international talent. For his first concert, he led the internationally acclaimed pianist Van Cliburn, who returned for an encore performance 5 years later.
My first and earliest memory of the Wichita Falls Symphony, moving here to Wichita Falls at the age of 14, I was a young teenager, and my parents brought me to the symphony to hear the famous Van Cliburn.
Van Cliburn.
That's it, Van
Did
Cliburn.
he come here?
2 times.
Wow. What was he like in person? Was he in?
He talked and talked. He was not in a hurry at all, and at the time I probably didn't realize how important he was or who I was visiting with, but I certainly do today.
I came to the symphony performances as a young girl, and in those days, in the 70s, it was a huge social event. So I remember seeing all of my grandparents' generation and my parents' generation all here dressed up and really excited for the opening of the season and the concerts that came throughout the season.
Throughout the 70s, the orchestra continued to soar, but looming just ahead was an unforeseen economic recession that would bring with it difficult financial times for the entire nation.
Well, back in the 80s, a lot of symphonies disappeared because of funding. And with the support of the board members and a lot of different people in the community, we were able to raise our funding.
Through the passionate fundraising efforts of this community, the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra played on. Washington State native Theodore Plute was ushered in as the new musical director in the spring of 1986, a post he held through the 1994-1995 season. His first concert, which included artillery from the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves for the 1812 Overture, set the stage for a 10-year run, rich with special guests and highlights.
Concerts will be performed this season.
Last year we had a Wichita Falls Symphony season and these seats were full. Well, right now they're empty. But on tonight's Silver Report, let's find out if we're going to have a symphony season 1995-96.
Beginning with the 1996 season, Dr. Candler Schaefer was selected as the 7th conductor of the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra. During his tenure, Dr. Schaefer drew on rich local musical talent in Wichita Falls and the Metroplex, including 2 of the orchestra's most important advocates and benefactors, Mrs. Aurora Bolin and Mrs. Dale Prothero, who originally joined forces with the orchestra in 1968 and performed multiple times before returning to the stage together for the season opener in 1999.
Mom and Dale were bonded at the hip, or the fingers, so to speak. They had 2 pianos in our home, and Dale was always over there.
We really worked hard. Playing 2 pianos is kind of double duty. You have to practice by yourself, your own part, and then you have to practice together.
They were soulmates from the get-go, and we heard them play
probably hundreds of hours.
My relationship with her was very special.
Dr. Schaefer completed his 20th and final season with the orchestra in spring of 2016. And after an international search, a new musical director, Dr. Fuad Fakari, will lead the 2017 season and beyond.
The future of the symphony. Well, I think we're off to a great start with Dr. Fakuri. He's already made tremendous impact on our season this year, and he has different ideas about how to bring in new artists.
It brings the community closer together, not just, through music, but also through, other things as well.
We've expanded our educational programming to not just include the elementary schools of WFISD, but we've expanded to all different levels, high school, elementary, and middle school.
Many of our students don't get to travel to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so to have this professional orchestra right here in our community where they can drive 5 miles down the road, get a student ticket, and come see a professional performance, that is just an amazing opportunity that I'd ever hate to see leave our community.
There's just nothing like being in the core of an orchestra and have all that sound around you.
Here you're at a concert, and it's this live moment where you're just you and the audience and the musicians and the conductor, and you're all here together. And you're part of this greater moment, this kind of transcendent moment, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's never going to happen again.
It was, oh my God, it was such an exhilarating experience. And I just, as I performed with them, I just kind of cried because it was just so beautiful.
And you know that you're part of something bigger than yourself. It's a beautiful thing.
I'll never forget the first time I heard the whole thing dress rehearsed. I remember the organ coming in and it just felt like my stand was shaking. As loud and as powerfully as they can, the orchestra's doing the same thing, and then you have an organ that comes in over it and it just fills the whole place. Like I said, I felt that immediate, I can't believe this. This is the craziest thing I've ever been a part of. I'll never forget that.
Because this is the 70th anniversary of this orchestra, I think a lot about the people who came before me and who have left us in such great shape and left us with such a strong institution.
I'm proud of the whole activity and the whole organization of it. It just couldn't be a stronger part of our community.